Morning students, we have completed our plant part. So, plant physiology is completed. Now, we are moving on to the next unit. So, it is related to human physiology. So, in this, as already I have told you, we will be discussing about different systems which are present, organ system which are present in our body. Okay. So, first the system what has been discussed is digestive system, but for your information in the syllabus the digestive system is not included. So, you are not having what the digestive system. So, we will be starting with the next chapter, that is chapter 17, breathing and exchange of gases. Okay. So, we are moving into the chapter breathing and exchange of gases. So, animal physiology chapters are very easy. I think it will not be much difficult for you people to understand, because it is the mechanism which is take place in our body, and some of the things we can feel it as well. Okay. So, breathing and exchange of gases. So, respiration in plants we have discussed. Now, we are going to discuss respiration in animals. So, in that breathing and exchange of gases, you know there are two types of respiration. What are they? One is aerobic respiration and another one is anaerobic respiration, isn't it? So, to start with this breathing and exchange of gases, the main organ which is responsible for the same is your lungs, isn't it? So, in that part only what is taking place, the exchange of gases is taking place, you are breathing in and breathing out. The one which is expanding and contracting is the lungs, isn't it? So, for starting with, we will be discussing about the human respiratory system, which you have a brief idea about the same. So, we are moving into the diagram human respiratory system. So, when you are seeing the human respiratory system, it starts with your nose, isn't it? So, nostrils, you are breathing the air in. So, the air is moving into the nasal chamber. So, from the nostril where it is going into the nasal chamber. So, that nasal chamber or nasal cavity we call. So, you can find this is the nostril through which the air is moving into the nasal cavity. Thereafter, where is the air going? The air is moving into, you can find it is moving into the next part called as the pharynx. So, this part we call it as what? We call this as the pharynx. Thereafter, the air moves into the larynx. Then it will move into the trachea, where it is moving into the trachea. Thereafter, the air is moving into the bronchi. So, this part we call it as what? The bronchi. Then the air will be moving into the lungs. Okay. So, if you are drawing, how you will be drawing is that I will just for understanding I will make it more clear. Okay. So, when you are looking into, the air is moving through the nostrils. So, imagine this is the nostril or cavity opening. From there, the air is moving into the next part, that is pharynx. This is a common passage for both the food and as well as your air. Okay. So, there is a structure called as epiglottis, which helps in covering the respiratory chamber when you swallow the food. Okay. So, there are two pipes, one is the food pipe where the food goes, and another one is the wind pipe, that is the trachea through which the air gets in. Okay. So, from the nose, nostril, it is coming to nasal chamber or the nasal cavity. Thereafter, the air is moving into the next part. So, this part we call it as what? The pharynx. From the pharynx, the air is moving into the next part, the vocal cord where it is present, larynx. What do we call them? Larynx. From there, it is moving into trachea. Okay, the wind pipe, which is called as what? The trachea. From the trachea, it is moving into the lungs. So, from there it is moving into the lungs. So, lungs, when it is moving, you can find from trachea it is moving to the lungs. For that, after the trachea, you are having structures called as bronchi. Through that only the air will be entering into the lungs. Okay. So, these pipes after the trachea, it is bronchi. The main branch, that is from the continuation of the larynx or trachea, we call it as what? We call it as the primary bronchi. This primary bronchi is dividing into secondary bronchi, two, one side, this side. Okay. So, like that, the primary bronchi, what is happening? It is divided into secondary bronchi. From there, it is divided into, moving into the secondary bronchi is moving into the lungs, and thereafter you can find what is happening. They are dividing into many branches. So, that one we call it as the tertiary bronchi. This tertiary bronchi again will divide. Okay. So, that division, the tertiary bronchi which is dividing, we call it as the bronchioles. And the bronchioles at the end, you can find they are having a sac-like structure, and this is the lungs. Okay. So, the sac-like structure we call it as the alveoli or the air sac, right. So, hope so it's but clear now. So, respiratory system, it consists of the nasal chamber, nasal cavity. From nostril it is going, thereafter it is moving into the pharynx, then it is moving into the larynx, then it is going to the trachea, then it is going to the bronchi. Bronchi is divided into many parts, that is primary, secondary and tertiary. The tertiary bronchi will give rise to a sac-like structure, which we call it as the air sac. All these bronchi, the branching arrangement is present inside the lungs. Okay. So, in the lungs you can find the branches or the bronchioles, and these so first is primary, I told you, second is secondary, third one is tertiary, fourth one is what, bronchioles, and thereafter you can find air sac. So, this sort of arrangement is found in the lungs, where only the exchange of gases is taking place. So, this is regarding your human respiratory system. Now, hereafter also you need to learn some of the parts. Okay. So, what are the parts? You can find there is a abdominal cavity here, isn't it? So, this abdominal cavity, just with the lungs, the space, you can find here there is a disc like structure present, isn't it? A dome shaped structure is present over here. This dome shaped structure which is present, we call it as the diaphragm. What do we call them? We call it as the diaphragm. And thereafter the lungs also, if you are seeing, the lungs is protected by rib cage, you know, isn't it? So, when you have learned bones, you would have learned there is a center bone over here, which one we call it as the sternum. What do we call them? We call this one as the sternum, and thereafter you can find 12 pairs of ribs are present, and the ribs are covering what? This the part, thoracic part is being protected by this cage like structure called as what? The rib cage. The front, the back, it is the backbone is present, or the vertebral column, and in the front what you are having? You are having a long bone called as what? The sternum, and the ribs are from the back, the ribs are coming and they are joining the sternum. Some of the ribs are floating, some of the front ones and all, they will be coming and joining the sternum, isn't it? So, that is also playing a major role in this breathing. So, you have understood what are the parts present. So, you are having a diaphragm which is present just above the abdomen at the end of the thoracic segment, which is the thorax. This part is, we call it as the thorax. Okay. So, in this thoracic part, when you are seeing what and all is present, there is a bone present called as what? The sternum, and thereafter you can find what? Rib cage. So, rib cage is just imagine the skeleton, you can make it out. So, on the back side it is the backbone. Now, listen very carefully. This diaphragm is attached to a set of muscles, because it is in the abdomen, we call them as the abdominal muscles. What do we call them? Abdominal muscles. So, this diaphragm, when you are seeing this diaphragm, is attached to a muscle called as the abdominal muscle. When the abdominal muscle contracts, the diaphragm also you can find they contract and relax, because this diaphragm is attached to what? This abdominal muscles. And another one is you are having what? The front part, this is the sternum, the rib cage. The rib cage, when you are seeing, is attached with that of the lungs, the part we call that one as the intercostal muscles. What do we call them? Intercostal muscles. So, where is this intercostal muscle present, ma? So, intercostal muscles, as I have told you. So, imagine this is the lungs. Okay. So, this lungs, if you are taking, this is the lungs. This lungs, if you are taking, it is having two. One set of muscle is present, or disc-like structure is present, which we call it as what? That the diaphragm, which is attached to a muscle called as abdominal muscles. And thereafter you can find this is the lungs, means the lungs is attached. In the front part you can find they are attached, means they are having connection with the rib cage. So, this rib cage, the sternum part, the bones, and the lungs, in between there is a set of muscles present, we call it as what? We call them as the intercostal muscles. So, this intercostal muscles, when they contract and relax also, you can find the lungs is increasing and decreasing its shape. So, two muscles are contracting, one is the intercostal muscles and another one is the abdominal muscles. So, when these two muscles contract and relax, at that time the lungs are also expanding and relaxing, as the lungs are attached to these muscles. Okay. So, that is regarding your respiratory system. To some extent I have made it clear which all the parts are. So, you are familiar with the parts like nasal cavity, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi. Thereafter you are having thoracic cavity. Then the thoracic cavity you can find what? The lungs is present. heart is present. The lungs, when you are seeing, they are attached to that of the rib cage by intercostal muscles. At the bottom you can find just the bottom of the thoracic cavity, there is a dome shaped structure present called as the diaphragm, and the diaphragm is attached to a muscle called as what? It is attached to abdominal muscles. So, these are the things which we have covered for human respiratory system. Now, moving on to the parts of the respiratory system, we have discussed nostril, nasal chamber, pharynx, glottis. I told you it is an opening through which the air wind will be passing through. Okay. Larynx, trachea, thereafter you are having bronchus or bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli. Okay. Bronchi is divided into primary, secondary and tertiary. Thereafter you can find the bronchioles, and at last bronchioles will end up in a sac like structure called as alveoli or the air sac. So, you can find this is the structure. So, this is the bronchioles and this is the air sac like structure which are present, called as what? We call them as alveoli. So, this is the structure of the heart, and you can find this bronchioles, air sacs are all covered by what? They are surrounded by blood capillaries. What they are surrounded by? They are surrounded by blood capillaries. Now, steps in respiration. What are the different steps? The first one is breathing. Breathing is what? You are taking in air rich in oxygen, giving out air rich in carbon dioxide. So, you are taking in air, right. So, that is breathing in. Diffusion of gases across the alveolar membrane. So, in the alveoli, exchange of gases is taking place. Okay. After the exchange, the oxygen is moving into the blood. Exchange has taken place. The blood is transporting the gas to different parts of my body through the heart, isn't it? So, after transporting, the oxygen is given, and then what is collected? The carbon dioxide is collected, and the deoxygenated blood is coming to the heart first. From there it will be moving to the lungs, then it will be moving out, isn't it? So, this whole process is what are the different steps in respiration. Okay, I repeat once again. So, what are the different steps? First, I am taking in air, it is moving into my nasal chamber, thereafter you can find it is moving into my pharynx, thereafter larynx, thereafter it is coming to trachea, then it is going to bronchi, thereafter it is reaching my lungs, in that the air sac. In the air sacs, when you are seeing, I told you they are surrounded by blood capillaries, exchange is taking place. Oxygen is given, which is more, is given to the blood, and from the blood the carbon dioxide is moving into the air sac, carbon dioxide is going out, and which is getting in the oxygen. The oxygenated blood is carried to the heart. From the heart the blood is pumped and it is carried to different parts of my body. There what is carried out? Oxygen is used for breaking down of food, respiration is carried out, and what is released? Carbon dioxide is released, and this carbon dioxide is coming to what? It is coming to the heart. From there it is moving into the lungs again. From the lungs again the carbon dioxide is going, oxygen is coming. Like this the whole process is taking place. So, circulation as such, both are interrelated, isn't it? So, steps in respiration, I think it's fine. Now, moving on to the different stages in respiration, that is in breathing. It involves, breathing means what? Taking in air rich in oxygen, giving out air rich in carbon dioxide. Mechanism of breathing, when you are speaking, there are two stages. What are the two stages? One is inspiration and another one is expiration. Okay. So, what is inspiration and what is expiration? Inspiration is breathing in, and what is expiration? Breathing out. We call it as what? Expiration. So, till now what we have discussed is not that important, but this is a very important 3-mark question. So, listen carefully. So, inspiration or inhalation is taking in air rich in oxygen, and exhalation is giving out air rich in carbon dioxide, right. Now, one by one we will be seeing how is this air moving in. There should be some mechanism which is taking place because of which the air is moving in. So, what is that mechanism? Inspiration or inhalation, what is taking place? See, when you are drawing the diagram, you see this is your lungs, right. So, this part is your lungs, and this is your backbone, the vertebral column, and this one is your front part where you are having the sternum and the rib cage part. Okay, so this part. So, this part, ribs is sternum, is this one rib cage, and this one is your diaphragm. From there, here it is abdomen, isn't it? And this one is your backbone, inside this is your lungs. So this part is being covered. Okay. Now when I am breathing in, just feel, breathe in. You are breathing in, isn't it? So what is actually happening? Your cavity inside the lungs is increasing, right? You can feel that your area, volume is increasing. Why? Because the air is getting in and the spaces are getting filled up and it is increasing. But for this increasing, my lung cavity has to increase, the thoracic cavity has to increase, lung capacity has to increase. There should be a mechanism. Who are playing a major role? Two sets of muscles. Who are they? One is your abdominal muscles and another one is your intercostal muscles. I told you ribs and sternum, when you are seeing, they are in between, there is a muscle present. So what is that muscle called? That muscles we call it as the intercostal muscle. So in between the lungs and here you can find a muscle present, sternum. So that muscle we call it as what? The intercostal muscles. And here there is a muscle present called as the what? We call them as the abdominal muscles. Now listen very carefully. When this intercostal muscle is contracting, means you can find intercostal muscle is contracting. Contracting means what? They are pressing like this, they are contracting. And when you are seeing this diaphragm also, at the same time what happens is that they also start to contract. So from down they are trying to contract, this side they are contracting, okay, and this side also they are contracting. So here the contraction is taking place, as well as the down also the contraction is taking place. When the intercostal muscle is contracting, they are increasing what? The surface area. So when the intercostal muscle is contracting, the rib cage as well as the sternum is pushed up. They are moving upward and outward. How they are moving? They are moving upward and outward. So this part of my body, when you breathe in, it's moving upward as well as outward. Okay. And stomach, you just touch and feel it where it is moving. When you are breathing in, actually they are increasing in the volume. You can find the diaphragm is moving downwards. So the diaphragm which is present over here, when you are breathing in, you can find they are moving downwards. Okay, so they are moving downwards. So this part is moving down and this part is moving up and out. Okay, so this one is moving down and this one is moving up and out. Now what happens? The area over here, the volume over here will increase. So it is resulting in what? It is resulting in increase in volume. So this, when it is moving upward and outward, this is moving downward. The cavity, thoracic cavity increases lengthwise. Okay, widthwise, lengthwise, the cavity is increasing. So when the area increases, you know what happens to the pressure? The pressure decreases. So when area increases, the pressure decreases. That's common, isn't it? So when you are having what is that? The air filled in the whole room, it's fine. But when you are putting the air in one particular small area, the same volume of air, then what you have to do? You have to press it, right? So which means that when the area increases, the pressure will be very less. That you know, isn't it? So when the area increases, the pressure is less. But outside the atmospheric pressure is more. So what actually the air molecules do? They move from a region of high pressure to the region of low pressure. So when I am expanding my area, what is happening? The area is increasing, but my pressure inside the lung has decreased. Outside the pressure of air is more. So air from outside will be moving into my lungs. Okay. So this process we call it as what? We call them as inspiration. What do we call them? We call them as inspiration. Okay. So listen, contraction of diaphragm, volume of thoracic cavity increases lengthwise. I told you when the diaphragm is contracting, the abdominal muscle is contracting, you can find what is happening. The cavity is increasing lengthwise. Contraction of the external intercostal muscle lifts up the ribs and the sternum. So the sternum as well as the ribs are lifted up. So volume widthwise also it is increasing. So like this also it is increasing, like this also it is increasing, right? Lungs expand. So what happens when the lungs is expanding? The area is more, the pressure is less. So what happened? The outside the pressure is more, the air rushes in, the air is moving into the lungs. Okay, so that is called as what? Inspiration. This process we call it as inspiration. So what is expiration? Opposite will happen. The diaphragm will relax and come to its original dome shaped. Muscles are relaxing. Abdominal muscle is relaxing. Contraction is over. Now they are relaxing. This outer intercostal muscle also will relax. So they will also go down. They will move inward and downward. This one will, diaphragm will be moving upward. So diaphragm is moving upward and this one is moving inward and downward. Now what happens here? The cavity, the thoracic cavity, the lung capacity, what happens? They become less, isn't it? So what happens? The lungs, when your space is less, the area decreases. So when the area decreases, opposite will happen, pressure is more, but outside the pressure is less. So air, when I am exhaling, what is happening is that my area is reducing. So when my area is reduced, the air is pressured up, so the pressure increases. Outside the pressure is less, so air from inside will be moving out, means air rushes out of the lungs. Okay, why it is taking place? Because when diaphragms relax, they come back to the normal dome shape. So you can find they are pushed up. And another one is the intercostal muscles. When they relax, they are coming downward and inward, because of which the area is becoming very less, but the pressure is becoming more. Outside the pressure is less. So air from inside will move outside, rushing out. That is expiration or exhalation. Understood? So hope so this is clear. So this process we call it as what? The exhalation or the expiration. So when you are writing this mechanism of breathing, you have to draw the diagram and explain. So you are supposed to practice the diagram, and this is a 3-mark question. Explain the mechanism of breathing. Okay. You can find here breathing in, breathing out, chest. So this is the rib and the sternum and the rib, and this one is your diaphragm. So you can find in case of breathing in, the cavity is more. Why? Because this is moving out, this is coming down. Here it is moving in and this is going up, right? So here the area is more, so pressure is less. So outside the pressure is more, the air will get in. But here when you are saying the area is less, pressure is more, outside the pressure is less, so air will come out. So this method we call it as what? Mechanism of breathing. The next topic what we are going to discuss is, we are going to discuss some of the terms which is related to your volumes and capacities of lungs. Okay. So just it is only what you have to learn the definition, nothing more to do with. So the first thing what we are going to discuss is your tidal volume. So what do you mean by tidal volume? Listen ma, tidal volume means what? Volume of air inspired and expired during a normal respiration. So how much volume of air can be held by your lungs? It depends upon different factors. Okay. So the first one what we are going to relate to the volumes is, first is your tidal volume. So what is tidal volume? Volume of air inspired or I am expiring during a normal respiration, means normal breathing. I am not conscious, I have to breathe in, I am conscious, I am breathing in. No, just like that I am doing my work, in between I am breathing, isn't it? Unknowingly it is an involuntary activity, I am breathing. So when I am breathing normally, how much amount of air usually I take in or give out? When you are saying it's around 500 ml. What it is? It is only around 500 ml. Now inspiratory reserve volume, which means additional volume of air a person can inspire by forceful inspiration, which means additionally how much I can take in. Okay, more than simply no. I am force means what? I am taking it forcefully inspiring. Forcefully means what? Breathe in. If I say for doing yoga, what do? You take in forcefully inside, isn't it? So that is called as what? The inspiratory reserve volume. For a normal healthy person, it can go up to 2500 ml. Okay. And the next is your expiratory reserve volume. Expiratory reserve volume is also like your what is that? This one only, forcefully exhaling. Okay, forcefully exhaling means breathe out. When I say during yoga, what do? you are taking in, then full you are giving out, isn't it? So forceful expiration, how much I can give, expire by forcefully, how much I can do it, it's around 1000 ml. How much it is? 1000 ml. So all the definition you have to learn. Tidal volume, normally how much I take in, how much I give out is only 500 ml. Forcefully, if I want to inspire, it is inspiratory reserve volume, it can go up to 2500 to 3000 ml, depends upon person's ability. And sometimes if you are having asthma or bronchitis, that much and all will not be inspired, okay. And expiratory reserve volume, when you are seeing how much I can forcefully exhale, it's around 1000 ml, okay. The next is your residual volume. So what is residual volume? Volume of air that remains in the lungs even after, so the lung all of a sudden it doesn't turn vacuum. I am forcefully giving out, it doesn't mean that all the air from my lungs has gone, okay. There is some amount of air which is always present in spite of your forceful exhalation. So that volume we call it as what? The residual volume, and it has to be noted that it will be around 1100 to 1200 ml, okay. The next is your inspiratory capacity. Inspiratory capacity means what? Normally how you take in, how much you take in, tidal volume you have learned 500 ml, plus forcefully how much you can take in, 2500 ml inspiratory reserve volume. If you add up these two things, you will get what? Your inspiratory capacity. How much you can take in normally, plus forcefully how much you can take in, okay. So that is your inspiratory capacity, right. The same thing only, expiratory capacity, what it will be? Normally how much you can take in, plus forcefully how much you can, normally how much you can give out, as well as forcefully how much you can expire or exhale, okay. So that is called as what? Expiratory capacity. So it is around 500 plus 1000 ml is equal to 1500 ml is your expiratory capacity. The next thing is your functional residual capacity. Means it is expiratory reserve volume plus the residual volume. So expiratory reserve volume, forcefully how much you can give it out, plus how much is present inside the lungs always, 1100 to 1200 we learned, isn't it? So if you are adding these two up, you are getting your functional residual capacity of your lungs, okay. Next is your vital capacity. All definition, just to learn, you try to understand what is signifying and you just learn, okay. So vital capacity, maximum amount of air a person can breathe in after a forced expiration, okay. So after a forced expiration, I am just expiring it out, full I have taken in and I have given full out, immediately how much I can take it in my body, vital, okay. So to the maximum how much I can, it is equivalent to expiratory reserve volume, which is equal to how much? 1000, because it is just moving out, plus your tidal volume, how much it is? It is 500, plus your inspiratory reserve volume, how much it is? 2500 ml, okay. So that is your vital capacity. So what is vital capacity? It is the sum total of expiratory reserve volume, tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume. The last one is your total lung capacity. Along with all these vital capacity, if you are adding up the residual volume, which is always present in the lungs, so 1100, isn't it, RV. If you are adding along with the vital capacity RV, you are getting what? Your total lung capacity, and for your information, it can be around 6000 to 7000 ml, it depends from person to person, okay. So these are some of the terms which we have covered related to what? Your respiratory volumes and capacities. Now again we will just recollect what we have learnt now regarding these respiratory capacities only. Okay, so this term I will just explain again. Tidal volume, normally how much I can take in or give out. Inspiratory, forcefully how much I can take in. Expiratory reservoir, forcefully how much I can give out, okay. The next is your residual volume. After forceful exhalation also some amount of air will be present in my lungs, so that is residual volume. Inspiratory capacity, normal how much I can take in, plus forceful how much I can take it. Expiratory capacity, normal how much I can give out, plus forcefully how much I can give out, okay. And thereafter you are having a functional residual capacity. How it is? It is expiratory reserve volume, forcefully how much you can give out, plus your residual volume. What is vital capacity? It is the sum total of expiratory reserve volume, tidal volume and inspiratory reserve volume, plus vital capacity plus your residual volume is your total lung capacity. Okay. So, all these terms I think it is a bit clear now, and you have to learn which you have to sum up, which you have to add on. Okay. So, that is regarding your capacities of the lungs. Next we are moving on to exchange of gases. So, what is the next topic? We are moving on to exchange of gases. Listen carefully ma, how is this exchange of gases taking place? Exchange of gases is depending upon the partial pressure, means the pressure, okay, of oxygen and carbon dioxide at different parts of a body, it will be different. Okay. Based on the difference in the pressure only, gases are moving from one place to another. So, pressure difference is the one which is responsible for movement of gases from one place to another. Okay. So, respiratory gases, in this it is oxygen. First what is given, it is oxygen, and the second what is given, it is carbon dioxide. So, now listen carefully, we have to note this one very clearly so that it becomes very clear. Respiratory gases, when you are seeing this oxygen, atmospheric air which is coming in is having oxygen pressure, how much, if you are seeing, it is 159 mmHg. So, unit for measuring that pressure, partial pressure is means millimeter mercury level, isn't it? So, Hg is what, the mercury. So, 159 mmHg is the volume, means the pressure with which the oxygen is getting into the lungs. So, pressure of oxygen in the atmospheric air is what? It is around 159 mmHg. But at the same time, when you are saying the carbon dioxide is present very less, how much it is present? It is only 0.3 mmHg, that much pressure is only there. Okay. Now, when you are moving into the alveoli, alveoli means, you know, from outside it is getting in, after getting in it is moving where? It is moving through the nostril, through the nasal chamber. So, some of the airs and all are getting trapped everywhere, isn't it? Thereafter it is moving where? It is moving into the bronchi, then it will be coming to the lungs. In the lungs, at last it is reaching what? The alveoli. So, alveoli, when it is reaching the air which is present in the alveoli, oxygen, when you are seeing, it is 104 mmHg, and carbon dioxide is becoming how much? It is 40 mmHg. Why? Because some exhaled air will also be present there. Okay. Now, so this one you have to learn. So, atmospheric air, the pressure, partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide is this much. In the alveoli, the partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide is this much. Now, blood, when it is deoxygenated, deoxygenated means, you know, venous blood, impure blood. Okay. So, in the veins it is present, where it is present? In the veins. So, in the veins, when you are saying, the partial pressure of oxygen is 40 and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is 45, which means carbon dioxide is more compared to that of the oxygen. And the blood which is oxygenated, oxygenated means what? Arteries, the blood which is flowing in the arteries, oxygenated blood. Here when you are saying the oxygen is more oxygenated, so 95 mmHg. What is how much? 95 mmHg. And what is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide? It is only 40 mmHg. In the tissue, tissue means what? In different parts of my body, the cells. So, there what is my carbon dioxide and oxygen concentration? If you are saying pressure, if you are saying how much it is, it is 40. Carbon dioxide, sorry, oxygen is present 40 because the oxygen is used up in what? Respiration, and what is released? Carbon dioxide is released, so carbon dioxide will be more. So, how much it will be? 45 mmHg. Okay. So, first you have to remember very carefully ma, partial pressure of all these oxygen and carbon dioxide as different places. So, this table is very, very important. Only then you can explain the exchange of gases. Now, if you are looking into the diagram here, in the, this is the alveoli. Okay. So, this is alveoli, and you can find this is the blood capillaries, right. So, which one is the alveoli? The sac like structure which is present, this is alveoli, and this one is the blood capillary. Okay. So, when you are seeing this blood capillary and alveoli, there actually what is happening is that there is only exchange of gases is taking place, because for the gases to move, they have to cross 3 layers. Okay. One is the layer of the alveoli, they have to, okay, outer layer of the alveoli they have to cross, Thereafter there is a basement. Basement means what? A small membrane like structure which is connecting the alveoli with the blood capillary. Thereafter the wall of the capillary also. So 3, so one is the blood capillaries wall, the gas has to pass, basement membrane the gas have to pass, thereafter the alveoli membrane they have to pass, then only the gas will be coming in. The same, the gas which is going out also they have to pass the alveoli membrane, thereafter they have to pass the basement membrane, then only they can go into the blood capillary after passing through the blood capillary, the membrane of the blood capillary. Okay. This is regarding diffusion. So, diffusion is taking place. For the diffusion to take place, every time there should be a concentration gradient. One there should be high and another where it should be less. So, particles move from a region of high pressure to a region of low pressure. That process we call it as what? We call it as diffusion. This diagram is explaining your exchange of gases. Listen. Inspired air, the air which is inspired, the atmospheric air which is being inspired, when it is reaching the alveoli, I told you, the partial pressure of oxygen is how much? 104, and partial pressure of carbon dioxide is how much? It is 40 mmHg. In the table we have seen, isn't it? And here if you are saying the oxygen is more and the carbon dioxide is less, isn't it? So what will happen is that the oxygen from here will be diffusing into the blood. So oxygen from here is diffusing into the blood. Okay, there are mechanism through the oxygenated blood will be moving into the arteries only. Okay, so oxygenated blood, so oxygen has moved in here, now the oxygen is more. Okay, now the blood is moving like this, like this. So in the oxygenated blood, you know, this oxygenated blood, what is the condition? Pressure, it's 95 mmHg of oxygen and 40 mmHg of carbon dioxide. So this blood which is coming, okay, contains 95 the pressure of oxygen is what? 95 mmHg and carbon dioxide is 40 mmHg. With this it is coming to various parts of my body. Now when it is coming to various parts of my body, listen carefully, there are tissues present. In the tissue, how is the pressure gradient? In the table we have seen, isn't it? In the tissue it was how much? 40, 45. So oxygen is how much? It is only 40. How much it is? 40. And what is the partial pressure of carbon dioxide? It is 45, isn't it? So one is 40 and another one is 45. But here in the blood it is 95 and 40. So which one is more? Oxygen is more in the blood, less in the cells. So oxygen from here will be moving into the cells, tissue or cells. Thereafter the oxygen will get in, they will break down the food, they will release energy and carbon dioxide. Now the carbon dioxide is more in the tissue and oxygen is less. So carbon dioxide from here will move into the venous blood, the veins, where it is moving? The venous blood, and through that venous blood of the oxygenated blood, where it is coming? It is coming into the heart first, from there it will come to the lungs. Now when it is coming to the lungs, carbon dioxide, I told you how it will be. It will be 45 mmHg carbon dioxide will be there, only 40 mmHg oxygen. So what will happen? Here it is more in the blood, carbon dioxide, here it is less, because in the alveoli you can find only 40 mmHg of carbon dioxide is present, but here it is how much amount of carbon dioxide is present? 45. So here 5 difference is there, isn't it? So carbon dioxide from air here will move into the alveoli. From the alveoli it will be moving out through the expired air, it will be going out. Okay, listen very carefully. So when I am breathing in air in the alveoli, the pressure of oxygen is more compared to carbon dioxide. So oxygen from the alveoli moves into the blood. Which blood? Oxygenated blood, arteries. The arteries, when you are seeing, the pressure of oxygen is more, 95 mmHg, but that pressure of oxygen in the tissue is less. It's only how much? It is only 40 mmHg. Now what will happen? From the blood the oxygen move into the tissue. There, after moving into the tissue cells, they will oxidize, they will respire, and they will give out what? Carbon dioxide. So in the tissue now the carbon dioxide pressure is more, 45 mmHg, and oxygen pressure is less because it is used in respiration. So it is 40 mmHg. That sort of pressure is being carried from the tissues through the venous blood, and it is reaching where? It is reaching the alveoli. where again in the blood capillaries you can find how much amount of venous blood, how much is present, carbon dioxide 45, but in the alveoli how much it is present, 40. So, from the blood the carbon dioxide will move into the alveoli, high to low, and thereafter it will be moving out. Like this only what is taking place, exchange of gases is taking place. Hope so it is clear and it is not that difficult. Make sure that you understand this concept. So, we will be discussing in the next class. Okay. Thank you.